Victoria Jones is with us. She is with the Talk Radio News Service, our Washington Bureau, joining us from Washington, D.C. Victoria, are you on top of this incendiary device that went off in the postal screening facility in Northeast?
Yes, I can tell you the latest that we have, as you know, it keeps developing. But the latest is that obviously the device did go off at a sorting facility in D.C. It's at least one, possibly two packages or envelopes ignited. It's in the district near the Maryland border. It's a postal facility that is used for sorting mail for the government. And it was addressed to Janet Napolitano, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. And it was a device similar to the two found on Thursday in Maryland that was sent to government offices, one of which was addressed to Governor Martin O'Malley. And in that case, in the Maryland case, it was very bizarre. It seems that the guy had a problem with overhead signs that we have in Maryland, live in Maryland, that warn people to report suspicious activity. And it seems that the guy had a problem with that. We have no idea whether this is a similar issue or not. The FBI is on the scene. They expect to send evidence to the FBI lab at Quantico for analysis.
Well, now, here's the point. If it had not gone off in the sorting facility, which was established after the anthrax threat to screen all of the mail and packages that are being delivered to the White House, to the Congress, and to the government offices, then it is potentially, it could have gone off in Napolitano's office, Homeland Security. Now, that certainly would have created a bit of a splash, wouldn't it have?
That's correct. That's correct. It could have done. I mean, it's highly unlikely that it, as unstable as it seems to be, that it would ever have reached her. It would have been some other poor person who would have opened it, but it could, in theory, have got to her office.
Oh, I am sure she does not open her own mail. You know, she's not like a mere mortal like you or me. So, Victoria Jones, let's talk about politics for a moment here. There was good news that couldn't have come on a better day for the president as he announced staff changes, including a new economic advisor, that the unemployment rate in December dipped below a level that had been anticipated.
Yes, it went from 9.8% to 9.4%. It was expected to go down to 9.7%. But you have to bear in mind that while this is good news, it also does reflect some people giving up on their job searches, and it does also reflect the law of diminishing returns. You know, as there are less and less people, it tends to get lower and lower. But the fact is that it's better than going from 9.8 to 9.9 or 9.8 to 9.7. So there was no question that this was good news. The not so good news was that it was anticipated. If you read the sort of pre-stories, they expected quite a number of jobs to be added in December, and in fact, employers added 103,000 jobs, which was an improvement from November's revised total of 71,000, but this was far below most analysts' expectations. Private employers actually added a net total of 113,000 jobs, but government shed 10,000.
And let's also be honest, this happened in December, where the retailers were hiring, and probably 100,000 of those 103,000 people who were hired have now been let go because the holidays are over. I was in a shopping mall yesterday, and the kiosk operators in the mall were like waving people to talk to them, because either that or they were falling asleep because the mall was pretty empty.
Right, and this is what we don't yet know. I mean, were these temporary Christmas jobs, or are these real jobs? And this, of course, we'll find out early in February if it turns out that these were just short-time jobs. And then it'll be very bad numbers.
You know, there were some people, I was not one of them, who thought that it was an exercise in stupidity to read the Constitution of the United States into the congressional record for the very first time, all form, no substance. Why don't they take care of the people's business, you know, for 2.5 hours, for goodness sakes. You know, I think it was a good civics lesson for those on the Hill and for those of us watching. And I'm all for it. They should do it at the beginning of every new Congress, as far as I am concerned. But let's talk about a real waste of time. The Republicans are insistent that target number one, and they are coming in with targets, they acknowledge, is Obamacare. Now, it's very interesting. As I am reading the various postings on Facebook of my many friends, some of whom I've never met, but I guess they're my friends, discussing this issue, the one comment that is made over and over and over again is, fine, you want to repeal Obamacare? I'm all for it so long as you are consistent, members of Congress, and you give up the health care that we are paying for you. But none of them are considering or even suggesting that, are they?
No, I believe there's one member who has said that he's got his own health care, so he's not going to do it, but the others are not willing to do that, no. That's my understanding. And there was a procedural vote today to bring it to the floor for formal debate, and that did pass.
Yeah, of course it did. So tell me, what do you... I mean, how are the reporters looking at this? I mean, it's obvious that even if it passes the House, it's not going to pass the Senate, and even if by some stretch of the imagination it passes the Senate, the president is going to successfully veto any repeal. So how do the old hands there who have been covering the Hill view all of this?
Well, I think, I think with jaundiced eyes to a certain extent, there's a certain bit of getting caught up in the process. There's a certain element of amusement, particularly with the shenanigans with two guys not getting sworn in. I mean, that's more interesting to a lot of reporters than this. But I think there's also a certain amount of reflexive reporting. You know, people refer to, they're voting on the jobs killing, blah, 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 repeal act. But nobody ever stops to say, what does that mean, the jobs killing? Why does everybody use the phrase jobs killing? Can anybody prove that it's killed a single job? So there's a little bit of reflexive reporting, but I think that people are waiting for this to move on to the next stage, which is that, yes, this is going to fail because Majority Leader Reid has said it's going nowhere in the Senate, and then they will start to try to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, and that is where they will probably have maybe some success.
You know, I'm going to tell you something right now, Victoria Jones. I have bad news on my analysis of your job as a correspondent in Washington, D.C. You will never, ever make it at Fox News if that's your aspiration, because if you listen to Fox, whenever they refer to Obamacare, they call it the unconstitutional Health Care Act. So if you are looking for a job with Fox, you better, get your nomenclature set the way it ought to be.
I better buck up my act.
You better, exactly. Hey, thanks for joining us, Victoria Jones. There she goes, our correspondent today from the Talk Radio News Service in Washington, D.C. We love their reports. Thank you, Victoria. I like hers because she puts a certain accent to it all, doesn't she? The story to which she referred about the two congressmen is quite interesting. On the very day that the Republican members of Congress, especially the Tea Party faction of Congress, decided that it would be so important to read into the congressional record, historically, for the very first time, the Constitution of the United States, to remind themselves how important it is for them to understand the Constitution and uphold the oath to which they were sworn, to protect the Constitution of the United States of America, two newly elected members of Congress were at a thank you fundraiser with constituents who they invited from their home states at the exact moment that they were supposed to be sworn in. So they looked at the television monitors and they raised their right hands, and I guess they thought that they had been sworn in by proxy or something, which of course they had not. And then they scurried over to Capitol Hill to cast their very first votes in violation, ladies and gentlemen, of that very Constitution of the United States. Because you cannot vote if you have not been sworn in as a member of Congress. And that's the story we didn't really get to expound upon, to which Victoria Jones referred.